Hi, welcome to It's Not a Bug, It's a Feature. From What the Heck to Aha Moments with me, Cate Sword, my CET experience presentation. First, a little bit about me. I'm a certified interior designer. I started working in AutoCAD in version 2. I started training at CAP before it was 2020 in 1989. And then in 97, I started my own business doing training and consulting. And I've been doing that ever since. I started training with CET in 2006, and I have presented at every conference every year. Now, the topics that we're going to cover are bugs. Like you might get a bug that might be like, I'm missing my component tabs and I can't find the walls. What's going on? Or why do I get these little tiny dimensions and they're going the wrong direction? They're like 1 inch. It's not what I want. Maybe you're getting my doors won't snap to the walls. What's going on? Or help! The tooltips are huge. I can't see anything but them. Maybe you're getting everything is black. I don't know why, but everything's black. Look at my image. Or maybe you're getting a message like, my alternatives keep changing. My photos. Why are my photos in the photo lab changing? All right, so what those boil down to is we're going to talk about your component tabs being collapsed or disappearing. We're going to talk about those weird tiny dimensions. We're going to talk about why you can't place doors or windows on the walls. And we're going to talk about how to control those giant tooltips. Also, why is everything black and how to fix it and how to use it. Also, how photos and photo lab are related to alternatives and why they're automatically changing. A lot of these things are just subtle things that I'm going to teach you. They're not random. So let's get jumping in. The first one is the message I'm missing my component tabs. And I'm going to use this PowerPoint that you're seeing. I'll refer back to it as we go through, and it'll be attached to the presentation when you need it. So let's pop on over to CET. And as you can see, I've got CT open, I've got a drawing open, and when I look at my component tabs, I'm on Show All Tabs, but my walls are missing, right? Even if I went to just the CET tabs, I can't find my walls. Well, this is a real subtle thing. Right here by rendering tools, there's a little darker line. And what that is indicating is that there is a section that has been collapsed. If I go over here and expand that section, there's my walls tab. It's actually kind of a neat feature because you can, if you want to, when you're not using things, you can collapse them. In fact, if you right click and let's say that I'm seeing all my tabs and I right click and I hit collapse, it'll move everything to be much smaller so you can go down to a certain section and open and close that section. I can also hit expand, and then what that'll do is it'll bring them all out again. While we're talking about it, if you did want your walls to be at the top all the time, there's a little star that you can click, if I can do it, right here, and that'll pin it to the very top. So no matter where you are, that tab will stay at the top. If you want to unpin it, you just hit the star again, and that'll let it go back to where it belongs. So unpin. Another cool thing to note is that not only can we collapse the component tabs like this, but we can collapse the tabs within extensions. So sometimes that might be useful. If you have a component tab with a lot of sections in it, you might even want to right click over here and say collapse them all so that you can go to the section you want to look at and maximize it. Or expand them all. While we're on the topic of component tabs, you can switch between, say, CET and FICA and back and forth with these, but there's also another cool thing you can do is you can create your own grouping here. So I'm going to use this button right here, the component tab configurator, and when I open that, I'm going to make a copy of that, and I'm going to call it Cate's Fave, all right? And it shows all the component tabs that there are. If I click on, say, the first one, CET, the first time you come in here, you might have to show the details. But once you show those details, you can see that this section is made up of 4 different tabs. And I'm going to be using tools and rendering, but I'm not going to be doing architecture. So I can uncheck that. Or under accessories, maybe I'm not doing anything with any of these. I'll uncheck that and see how it unchecks all of them. Maybe I just want one off its accessories. There we go. I don't need my utilities, or maybe I don't want to see the building information. I like some of these tools I want to see and some I don't. So I can either uncheck them and then again go down and say, yep, we're going to be using edit graphics, but that's about it. And you can go through and uncheck the sections that you don't want to use or you don't want to see in your list. Now, I do want Fika to be turned on. And here's another interesting thing you can do is I can take Fika and I'll drag it all the way up to the top. So now when I look at my tabs, and let's go ahead and turn off a couple more of these. I've got a lot of manufacturers installed. Okay, oops, get back up here. There we go. So now you can see that I have the ones I use the most at the top, and then the others that I'm not using today, right? Turned off. Anytime I want, I can turn them back on. I can move them up and down. That's pretty cool. So now I can, when I'm doing this, there's Cate's fave. Let's show you another even cooler, quick way to get to those. Back here when I was in the component tab configurator, there's a tool called quick buttons, and that's this A, B, C. If you've never used these, it's kind of cool because you can go over here to quick buttons and I can say, well, maybe A is show all tabs. All right. And B is my CT tabs, or your manufacturer you might pick and put in there. And then I'm going to make C Cate's fave. So what that means is that when I go A, that's show all, B, there's a CT, and C, that's my favorite ones. So it's a real quick way to jump back and forth and grab the tabs and the component tabs over here that you want to make your life a little easier. Now, when I'm working, I also notice that in here, do you see these little dots? Tiny little dot right here. That little dot means that this component tab has not loaded yet, which means that when I click on it, it'll take a second to open up. Well, actually, like this one will take 813 milliseconds. The reason that they're doing this is so that when we start CET, especially when we have a lot of people installed, right, that it could take a lot to load every single one of these component tabs. So instead of loading them all right on startup, when you click on it, it'll load them up. Just a little tip, that's what those dots mean. Okay, so one more thing. I am not a fan of the fact that I use the tool replicate a lot. And so what I'll do is I'll go to my tools tab and I scroll all the way down to the bottom to get to replicate, right? If I have a little shortcut I can do, tools, custom tools, and the custom tools is a sort of a custom-made toolbar that you can put any component tab in and any from any manufacturer. Now it takes about 7 seconds to load up, and you can see that I already put replicate in here. So let me take it out. So if I hold it, hit the X. I didn't have replicate. Pretend I didn't have it in there. I go down all the way to the bottom. I find replicate, and I hit this little arrow, and that'll send it to the custom tools. So now anytime I want, let's say I need to put some text in, or I want to do a dimension, or, and this is what I do a lot of times, I'll minimize this and just let it hang out right here while I'm working. So I'm working, I'm in Fika, placing more furniture, working away, and I want to put a label. Instead of going back to tools, back to find text, all I do, I go in here, there's my label. I can put my label in my drawing. I don't need to jump into any of the other component tab. Another cool thing about this, just so you know, you can rename this and you can add in more tabs. So if you want to put a tab in here for different types of things you're doing, like maybe miscellaneous rendering or for your manufacturer, anything, this is a really fun little tool. I like to keep mine sitting up here. There we go. Let's go back to my PowerPoint. So I talked about expanding and collapsing the tabs. I talked about pinning it, right? I talked about making my own configuration, all right? And then also how to make custom tools. And then you send that to the custom tools and you have it. It's a system setting, so it'll always be there. You don't have to do it every time. So what's next? Why do I get dimensions, these little tiny dimensions all the time? I don't know if anybody's had this happen to them before, but I get it when I'm in a hurry. So if I go in here and I'm talking with a client and I'm like, well, let's just do a quick measure of this, and I do something like that, and it's like, what the heck? I did not want it to be 1.5 inches. And it's really so easy to do. It's because I'm in a hurry. And the reality is that this 3-click dimension, if I click and click and click, I get a dimension, right? Or I can literally click and drag, let go, and do it. So it can be a 2-point click. It's actually originally was designed was a click and drag and let go, and then place your dimension. So almost like a 2-point, but we don't do a lot of dragging in the software, so they made it a 3-point click. But I think it's kind of fun that if you want to put a dimension in, you can do click and drag. And while I'm talking about dimensions, let's go ahead and talk about more about the dimensions. And in our Tools component tab, there's a section in here on dimensions. And there's that 3-point again. So this is the shortcut for the 3, and here it is. There's a little triangle in the corner that lets you go to the 2-click dimension. So this dimension is designed, let me go ahead and click on it. 1, 2, and it puts a dimension in there, right? So if you're in a hurry, you can put dimensions in real quick. I'm not a huge fan because this is what I normally get. Yes, I can kick the properties, I can say be horizontal, and I can kind of fiddle around with it to get it where I want. I'm more of a fan of, doing the 3-point where I go, and I can even drag it, click, let go, and then put it in the direction I want. But just so you know, that's there. I'm going to hit this little triangle in the corner and put it back to 3-point. So now that's my default. And while I'm talking about dimensions, let's go ahead and cover the chain dimension because it's built in and it's pretty cool. I'm going to just grab the side of my building and go to, let's go there, and then like that. And what it does is it lets me keep putting in dimensions. So, oops, I missed that. I didn't mean to do that. And like that. And I don't really want a dimension at the end, but I clicked it. I got one too many. So this is a really nice dimension. You can move it up and down, right? You can adjust if you missed the point. Oops, let's get that in there. Great. Okay. And if you double click on it, you'll get the edit box where you can either edit, add, merge, or remove. So like I want to remove that dimension. Maybe I can merge, say, these two together, or I can add a point. Let's go in here and add that point. So it's real easy to edit this chain dimension by double clicking on it, and then you get the dimension editor. Another cool thing about dimensions, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but you might put a dimension in, and then I'm going to change this panel. Oh, look at that. My dimension's updated. You might not have noticed it when I brought them in. Sweet. But when you place a dimension, it has associative automatically checked. And this means that when you're placing it, it's going to find, let me grab a dimension here. It highlights that point, and you can see there's a little blue dot where it's associated. So if you make a change to those 2 points, that dimension will change as well. You can turn it off by simply hitting your space bar before you place it. So if I hit my space bar, that turned it off. I'll hit my space bar again, turns it back on. So that's some cool things about dimensioning. All right, and then in my handout, you can see that I've talked about click and drag, 2-point chain, and associative. All right, if you ever come in and your doors don't snap to the walls, what's going on? It's a pretty straightforward thing. It's graphical snapping. Let's look at the drawing in 2D and 3D. You can see that I've already got some walls in here, right? And I've kind of traced along the building shell. And if you notice over here, I want to put a door in. And let's go back to walls. And I'm going to grab my door. And when I go to place it, it's going to the middle and the end, but it's not letting me place it on the wall. And that's because I have my snapping disabled for on curve. Basic points turns off on curves. You should have it always set to all. There was a while when we couldn't leave it on. We didn't like to leave on curve on because it messed up with the furniture. That is no longer the case. If somebody in your office says you need to have on curve turned off, that is no longer the case. You should have it set to all the time. Then when I go to place a door or a window, I can click it in here and get the door in just the way I want. There we go. So that's our graphical snapping right here. Now you'll see graphical snapping and then the basic points. Okay. Wait. My next message. The tooltips are huge and I can't see anything. All right. What are tooltips? First off, let's look at that. So in your drawing, when I am working, I can have my detailed tooltips turned on. And what those are, and you'll see what the problem is. Oh my gosh, look at that. Now, full disclosure, this is a group called cluster of all of these components. And the tooltips are telling me everything that's in that cluster. If I hover, I'm not clicking, if I hover over this component block, it tells me what's in this block. And I really like this tool, to be honest, because the information that it gives me is the part numbers, what level it's on, but also the categories. And when I get to printing, it's really nice to know what categories things are on. So I can see that these are work surfaces. If I'm not clicking, if I hover over my CAD drawing, it's on the CAD plan. If I hover over my dimensions, I can see that they're on installation, markup, dimensioning. So it's a really nice tool for telling sort of what categories things are. It gets a little out of hand when you have something big. So you need to be able to just turn it on and off. And disabled tooltips is right here. Shortcut for that, type the letter I. So I turns it on and off. Now I just have cluster. If I type I get the whole tooltips. Type I just have that. You know, while we're up here, let's talk about these other buttons. For example, this one right here, switch to group mode. When I'm working a lot of times, right now I'm in single select mode. If I wanted to move this whole workstation or the whole cluster, I would switch to, click this, and I would switch to group mode, right? So it grabs that whole group. The shortcut for that is S. So when I type the letter S, it switches me from single to group. So this one, switch between single mode and group mode, that's S. The next one is snapping. And you can, if you want to, let's go back to single select mode. Let's say I want to move this and it keeps snapping and I don't want it to snap into place like that. I can turn off snapping and then I'll move it around. And snapping is now off, and no matter what, it's just this poor dimension's trying to keep up. And then I want it to go back, I can turn it back on, snap it into place, right? Or I could just hold my shift key down. If I hold my shift key, that disables it. And you can see, watch the little icon, I'm holding my shift key, it turns it temporary, it turns it off. So shift is how you disable snapping. All right, so there's our enable detailed tooltips. And you know, while we're up here, let's talk about this. All right, so let's see. Is this in a group? Let's make this a group. There we go. All right. Have you guys turned on enable quick measure mode? When this first came out, I turned it off. It was too confusing. When you click on something, it's like these lines and these dots. What the heck is going on? We didn't know what they were, right? And well, what they are is if you click on one of those dots, it gives you three little tools you can do. One, I can just select this item. Okay, that's cool, right? I guess. Or I can click on that dot and I can set the distance. So between these two desks, I want them to be, let's say 6 foot. So set distance, 6 foot, or I could have typed 72 inches. Awesome. I also can click on this and say insert a dimension. How about that? Watch this. This is a really great way to use it. The thing you're clicking on is the thing that's moving, and this is the guy that's moving. So I'm going to click on this dot right here, and I want the distance between these two to be 48 inches. And then I want the distance between that and here, between here and there, to be 2 inches. All right? And then I want this guy to be between here. I want that to be 6 foot. And while I'm at it, I want it to be 2 inches from there. How about that? If you use this, you can, once you get good at this, you can move things around and adjust them, kind of doing like an offset and inserting the dimensions at the same time. Remember, when I clicked on it, all right, and I went here and I hit the dot, let me click the dot, click on the dot, insert dimension, just like that. It's a pretty nifty little tool. So that is this. Now, while we're up here, let's talk about the next button, enable extra categories. So this is a little add extra categories. Well, first off, when I turn it on, there's a neat thing that happens is that when I go to place something, and I'm just going to throw a dimension in here, can you see down here at the bottom, it tells me what category. So just turning that on, turning on the categories dialog, means that I can see that dimensioning. That's what category it is. If I wanted to click right here, I could select a different category to put it on, right? I want to put it on, let's say that I want to put this dimension on desks, right? Because it's going to go with these desks. So I'm going to go find, well, tables, okay? So I'm going to put it with the table text, right? There we go. And now, instead of having it be the one that I put in there before, I'm going to go from, say, here to, say, here, right? Or I can also use this to say I want all of the tags. I'm going to do a bunch of things. I don't want to have to go pick that every time I do desks, but let's say I want to put this dimensioning on my panels. So I'm going to click this, and I'm going to hit next to panels, panel, generic text. So now that's the category that's being added. So when I brought this dimension in, instead, if I would have, I'm going to grab this endpoint to there and this midpoint, and then we're going to set it there, right? This, let's turn on those detailed tooltips, is now on panel generic install text. I can test that by going to Fika and clicking on this and going to panels, and you can see that that dimension is on the same category as this text because that's my generic install text. So if I wanted to put in a bunch of dimensions, I would go up that were all on that category. I'd do it this way. Or if I just wanted to change one, I would do it on insert using this icon. This little plus right here is just going to expand all your categories so you can see what they all are. The minus will collapse them all. All right, so those are some cool little buttons. So that's the Disabled Tooltips button. And then we have the Enable Quick Measure. That was kind of fun. All right. And then also our Add Extra Categories on Insert. So those are some neat little buttons that you might not even knew existed. All right. Everything is black. All right. So I don't know how this happened. Why is it black? Well, let me show you what's going on. You've probably seen this before. If you're working, like I like to work, and I'm going to show you how I like to work. In my 3D right now, I have, can you see how there's this nice shadows? In the rendering, I have real-time lights turned on. But in order to get this nice shadow look, I went to real-time lights. and I set my light options to multiple suns. That's how I get this beautiful, sort of very easy way to have a good look. However, now when I go to the photo lab, okay, and I've got my rendering that I'm going to do. That looks great, right? And I go up here and I say product lighting. Oh, where'd all the lights go? Well, product lighting, you can't use real-time lights on it, okay? Because it has to be calculated. It's a calculated light. And not only did it do that here, but when I go back to my drawing, it didn't do it this time. Oh, I turned them off. If I still had my real-time lights on, this would be black. So if you get a black, if your drawing is all black like that, it's because your real-time lights are on. And if you're working in, doing a presentation and you want them on, you'll still have to go set this back. See, when I went into product lighting in the photo lab, it reset this to multiple suns. So if I wanted to work this way, there's a choice. You have to do a trade-off. Do I want to work like this in front of the client? Live design, great for live design. Or am I doing renderings? So then I'll turn this off. So those two things are, they kind of, they go back and forth. Sometimes it'll stay product lighting in the photo lab and multiple suns in the drawing, but a lot of times they'll switch back and forth. So you just need to know that that's what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to type I so that I don't keep in that detailed tooltip. Okay. It's disturbing when you see it happen, but it's nice to know that you can do it. And the multiple suns is a great little trick for live design. All right. Last topic on here was my photo lab keeps changing when I use alternatives. So what does that actually mean? So I have photos in photo lab of a couple different typicals, right? And so let me just say in this drawing, I actually have alternatives. And sometimes when you're looking at this alternative, oops, my photo lab is open. There, I'm in my drawing, right? There's one alternative. Here's another alternative. It's over here, right? And then I have my layout, which is my main one, right? So I have three different alternatives in here. And traditionally what happens is that when I'm in the photo lab, let me open my photo lab back up. I'm going to create a new photo, right? I'm going to get the angle that I want. I might even rename it. I might right click and hit rename. And I'm going to say front, okay? And maybe this will be like my top rendering. And again, I'll go over and set my product lighting. You do all that. And I can rename this one to be top. That's great when I'm in here, okay? But then when I go to my typical and I open up the photo lab, you're going to see that I actually literally have the same two photos, right? Which is cool if they were all lined up, but they're not. So I rearrange, move over here like this, and I go, where is that? There's the top. Did you notice? Yep, that's my website. Okay. And then I close that and I go back to my other alternative to my typical right and do the same thing. And then I go to my layout again and I open up Photo Lab. My photos are kind of not exactly, that's not at all where I had them, right? Because the photos are the same in each alternative. So I'll demo one more time, right? So go to my right, open the photo lab, okay? This one, where is it? Here it is. Now, if they were all located exactly the same, right? So let's zoom to fit, there it is, okay? I right-click Zoom to Fit. That'd be great, but they're not. Okay, they're not designed that way in my drawing. So, and now it's going to be messed up again, right? That's not what I had. That's not what I wanted. The trick is, if you have different alternatives and you want different photos for each alternative, you go up to your tools and you go to options and you can set this to one common photo series for alternatives, change it to one photo series for each drawing alternative. Now, once you do that, then what it does is it deletes, it disconnects them. So now the top and the front are connected to each alternative. The good news is they're different for each different alternative. The bad news is if you had typicals that you wanted to have all the same settings for and all the same angles, that's tricky. What I wanted to tell you about, though, kind of in conclusion, is that when you do this one photo series for each alternative and you say close, that is your new default setting for CET. It is not drawing specific. It is a system setting. So remember that if you do make that change and then tomorrow you're doing renderings of two photos, two alternatives that are lined up exactly, that you need to reset it back. So let me just kind of give that. It's because of alternatives. When you have different alternatives, that's why it's doing it. You need to go into the photo lab, go to options, change one common photo series to one photo for each alternative. That's all for today, but I've got plenty more tips to share. Feel free to email me or visit my website to schedule a call. I'd love to connect with you. Thank you.